Greetings, cardboard fans. Welcome back to Hot Cardboard. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I think is probably one of the hottest cardboard collectibles in the marketplace right now, and one that I think some of you may have a pretty good chance at scoring some deals on if your towns and the stores in them are anything like the ones in my area. So let me talk a bit about Lorcana. So Lorcana is a trading card game, much like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, but it is really themed on all of the Disney characters from, their entire run of movies, from, the Cinderella original type, Disney films to Lilo and Stitch here, as you can see on this box, to everything in between. So Toy Story and all the Pixar films and series that Disney now owns. Trying to think what else. Moana, all the kind of newer Disney films. So all the characters in all the Disney properties, excluding Star Wars. At least to my knowledge, there's no Star Wars content in Lorcana, and that's presumably because there's a separate TCG that Disney licensed the rights to use for that. So I think that they might have otherwise actually had at least some exposure to Star Wars in this set, but there is not to date. So it's everything else Disney that is the feature of the cards in this set. And the game itself is, it's I haven't played it myself, and someday maybe I will check it out. But from what I can tell, it's a game that's somewhat versatile in that you can play it in a form that, is easier to learn and simpler for the younger folks, kids who want to play it, and also, can be played in more complex forms. And, there are tournaments, and they go, I think, local, regional, national, and probably international, just like kind of all the bigger card games like Magic and Pokemon. So, it's really just another kind of offering in the TCG space as far as gameplay, and a lot of people are suddenly, very interested in this game because we've seen, a lot of collector investor types piling in to the marketplace and driving prices of a lot of Lorcana sealed products and a lot of the chase cards in the sets to very, very all-time highs. So that has not gone unnoticed by anybody who pays attention to what's happening in the trading card game space, as I do, along with sports cards, non-sports cards, and every other type of cardboard. And just as we saw similarly with the One Piece TCG that took off about, I'm trying to think when that was, probably a year and a half ago. It really had a major kind of parabolic type boom, where things were going up just 10-20% a week for like months on end, and it kind of cooled off, and has recently gotten hot again. And I think there's probably a very good case to be made for the longevity of One Piece as a TCG and as a collectible staple in the trading card game space. So along comes Lorcana, which has been around for several years now. I can't remember when the first set came out, but it was the first chapter is what it was called, and it did get some interest early on, just because anytime a major player like Disney licenses their IP, in this case to a company called Ravensburger, which makes puzzles and other sort of, I think, like board game type products, the market takes note of that. And so there was at least some attention paid by the broader TCG marketplace and collectors, investors at that time, but it never really caught on in a major way. I think it was 2023 or so, might have been 2022, that the game was launched. So, it's quite new. It's only 3, 4 years old. And, they've been pumping out sets on a pretty regular clip. I think there's about, I don't know, probably 12 to 15 sets if I had to guess. We'll take a look at, all of the sets here in this video. And, many of the sets up until very recently have really been quite lackluster in terms of their performance in the market and their interest to collectors. There have been, some cards that are, quite rare and that feature very well-liked characters, and they've gotten, some value in the individual cards in some of these sets that have come out. But by and large, up until, whatever, like 2, 3 months ago, a lot of the sets, were really struggling to sell for more than like what they cost at distribution, which puts retailers and LGSs who sell this stuff in a pretty tight spot. Because obviously, if you're getting it for, I think it's like $85 a box at distribution, and you can't really sell it for more than, like $89 or $90, you're in trouble, because that's not really enough profit to warrant, the shelf space and the kind of logistics of getting product in and storing it and putting it on your shelves and keeping it there. So for a long time, the game and the cards were really not seen as, serious collector's items. There were certainly some people who, always enjoyed the cards because they're big fans of Disney, and they were, maybe collectors of other TCGs. But by and large, the game was considered by a lot of, LGSs and a lot of people who, follow TCGs for collecting and investing purposes as a failure. So more recently, I will show you what has happened. There was a set that came out, and it was called Fabled, and this was about, I think, 3 or 4 sets ago. And this had some new types of rarities that were very rare. They're called iconics, and the value of these cards has always been quite high. There's a Mickey and a Minnie Mouse, and this is kind of, sort of an OG, like 151 type set, where it really focuses exclusively on the most, classic and well-known characters of the Disney universe. So you've got, Mickey and Minnie, obviously. You got Winnie the Pooh, Ariel, Dumbo, Circle of Life, Beauty and the Beast here, 101 Dalmatians. So all the most popular, well-known characters have, well, not all of them, but many of them have, rare cards in this set, and the introduction of this new type of rarity that is especially rare, I think, drove a lot of people to pay attention to this set, whereas maybe they didn't pay attention to prior sets. And consequently, the price of sealed for this stuff has gone up very significantly, given that you can pull cards that sell in PSA 10s for like, upwards of $10,000. This is a raw, lowest listed is actually the only one listed is $6,000 copy. Last sale was, let's see, like almost 10 days ago. This has gone up since this time. If you look on eBay, which is, really where cards of this magnitude are almost exclusively sold, because if you buy a card that's this valuable without seeing a picture of it, you're, kind of nuts. But in any event, this set really started, I think, a level of increased popularity for this game. It's prices of a lot of the cards reach levels that nothing in other sets did, and it just sort of simmered there for a while. I'm trying to think if I have any idea when. So this came out, I want to say it's about a year ago. This came out. Um, and it sort of went through a period of initial hype where prices were high, and then it kind of dipped down. Actually, we can look at the price chart of a booster box and sort of see, whoops, see kind of the trends here. But so it looks like it came out in about summer of 25. So yeah, just about a year ago, it came out. You see, there was a ton of excitement and interest, and a lot of sell through of this box on TCG Player. At this time, it reached prices of 175 or so, and then it kind of dipped down, like way down. It got as low as like 120, and if you were super smart, you you bought here, and you said, well, the interest on this has cooled down a bit, but I can see the sort of long-term appeal of some of the cards in this set, and I want to take a gamble on a pretty big IP having some success in the TCG market. And you could have picked up cases of this stuff for cases or 4 boxes, so like probably $450 you'd pay for a case of this stuff. And now those cases are they're like I don't know, let's see, $900, so 243, so they're like $4,000 probably. Actually, probably more than that. I think the case premium on these is quite significant. So yeah, so basically kind of slowly rose up after that low there, and then kind of plateaued here in early 2026. And then just about like 2 months ago, April, this thing really started to pump up. And then in the last basically month, from like May to June, it's doubled in that time frame from where it was in May. So it's up to like $900 a box. We can look at the last few sales. Actually, now it's closer to $1,000 a box. And along with it, other sets in Lorcana have gone up too. The most recent set is this one. It's called Wilds Unknown, and it has a very valuable Buzz Lightyear card, which is noteworthy because Toy Story 5 is out in theaters now. It's doing quite well and getting very good reviews. So cards that have characters from that movie, I think, are going to be quite popular. And this one in particular, again, there's only a couple of iconics in each set since Fabled, and they're thousands of dollars. So so this set, is kind of, I think, the second best set, other than First Chapter, which is the first set, which I don't think it has, the most valuable cards in it, but it is very rare and does command a pretty significant premium sealed form because it is the first set, and copies of that product are really drying up. So anyways, that's kind of a intro. If I'm assuming if you're watching this, you probably haven't really paid much attention to Lorcana, and so my intention was to sort of educate you on what has happened. If you look at the full list of sets here, Attack of the Vine is not yet out yet. That's coming out, I think, in July. So we've been seeing pre-orders of that product. Most recently, Wilds Unknown right now is the most recent set, and then Winter Spell, and then Whispers in the Well, and then Fabled was the set that really kicked off kind of the the modern hype of Lorcana. And everything from Fabled forward is considered to be much better than anything that happened before Fabled. So these other sets that happened before Fable, like Reign of Jafar, Arcasia's Island, Azurite Sea, Shimmering Skies, Ursula's Return, and so on, are considered to be, sort of a step down from the quality and interest of everything Fabled and newer. However, there are basically, like, the newer the set, the more valuable it is almost, with this exception of Fabled, which is, whatever, 3 sets old at this point, and it's the most expensive. But everything after Fable is considered to be kind of, premium. Everything before Fable is, less interest, and really the older you get, all the way back to the first chapter, the less interesting the sets are. So the second set, Rise of the Floodborn, is seen as, very, very kind of low quality. As the second set of an entire card game, it is probably going to, over the long term hold some value just because it's one of the very first sets. But, in terms of the collectability of the cards, it's really not even close to what you see in the marketplace for newer sets, especially the newest, like 3 or 4 sets. Into the Inklands is another one that's quite low value. Ursula's Return, also very low value. Sherman Skies, a little bit better. Azure at Sea and Arcasia's Island, pretty bad. Reign of Jafar has some really cool sets, but definitely considered kind of a weaker box. And, if I had to sum it up, basically you have like $100 booster boxes at this point. And again, wholesale pricing on these was like $85. So $100 boxes are not at all impressive at this point. And what's happening in Lorcana, I think, is quite a bit different than, at least at this point. We may see, additional upward trends in the coming weeks and months, but, the fact that there are like $100 boxes around tells me that this hasn't quite taken off to the extent that like One Piece did, for example, where, like the cheapest box you could get, I don't know, 2-3 weeks into that boom was like, $220. In any event, that's kind of a very quick summary of what's happened with Lorcana in the last couple of months. And so, I took note of this probably about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And I said, I think it's probably worth investing some of my dollars into Lorcana. And part of that was part of the way that I did that was to seek out, as many cheap booster boxes as I could find. So I did pick up a lot of these cheaper boxes, basically everything forward of Ursula's Return I picked up. And then I picked up some Into the Inklands as well. And I did get one case of the first chapter, just because I like to have the first set in any TCG that I think is worth investing in. And I've also got, a smaller number of cases of Winterspell, Wilds Unknown, Whispers in the Well, and very little exposure to Fable, just because it's, so expensive. I am more of a value investor. I like cheaper things in mass than more than I like, 1 or 2 products that are super expensive and have, had a lot of gains compared to everything else that is out there. So I'm still like learning, a lot about this game and about what makes each set, attractive, and, learning more every day about it. But what I want to talk about with you all, who again might be very new to Lorcana, is, where would you get started if you wanted to have some kind of exposure to this game? And I think there are some still very good opportunities. I mean, the number of opportunities have dried up a bit, although I will say that box prices have cooled down a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Actually, I want to show you one chart real quick there. This is Wilds Unknown booster box price, and you see this like dip here where these cases, I actually bought a couple cases of Wilds Unknown for $1,200, which was higher than anything on TCG Player because I bought them on eBay, and that was like the lowest you could get them. And I like eBay because I don't pay sales tax there since I buy to resell. So I kind of bought at the prior peak, and it's down a good bit since then. So $9.94 is the cheapest. You can get a case right here for $9.85 plus tax, which is probably something like, $70 to $90 for a case, depending on where you live. So these are, kind of just over $1,000 for a case. And again, that's quite a bit cheaper than what I was paying, when I bought a couple of these for $1,200. So, there is some opportunity to get things cheaper than I've got them at least. But I think you can probably do a little bit better than that. So my experience with kind of looking for Lorcana out in the wild has been that like there was a lot of stuff that sat on shelves for like years in some cases at retailers like Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, and I'm trying to think. I don't know. There's probably lots of other stores that carry this stuff that we don't have where I live, which is a relatively kind of small area. But I just when I went to these stores, if they had similar kind of stuff that was one of the more recent sets, I picked it up. So actually could have brought more stuff out to show you, but they have boxes that are I'll go back and show you here, that are kind of like little retail style products. Illuminers troves is what they call them. So they have like 8 packs, and then a storage box, some dividers, some dice, and some other tchotchkes that you need to play the game. And these are kind of like what you'd get if you wanted a handful of packs, but didn't want to go hunt down like a booster box at a LGS. These Illuminers troves products are essentially like a blaster box in sports or an elite trainer box in Pokemon, if those references help understand what these are. But these are pretty widely available, generally, for sets that are in print at Target and Walmart and other places that carry Lorcana. So when, Fabled kicked off, and I said, well, what's the next best thing after Fabled? Because it's gotten kind of expensive, and there certainly hasn't been Fabled out in the wild for quite a while. Wilds Unknown was a clear choice. So if I saw these, I was at the store, I would pick them up, and usually there's whatever 3 or 4 of them sitting on the shelf, and there's like a limit of 2 at Target and other limits at different stores. So I just kind of slowly bought these when I saw them, and I don't know if I know how many of these I have, probably 6 or 7 of them at this point, in addition to the booster boxes that I bought online. But if you live in a smaller town, you very well may see booster boxes, or I'm sorry, Illuminers troves like this, sitting on store shelves, or you may see sleeved booster packs of Wilds Unknown. Anything that you can buy with packs of Wilds Unknown in it, are going to be a good deal for you. These are about $100. This is a case of them, right around $500. There's 4 in a case. So these are going for about $100 right now. MSRP on these is, I think, $49.99 plus tax. So there's a very nice little profit in there. If you see these, you could sell it on eBay, pay your 15%, get $85, and turn a profit there if you were so inclined. Everything I buy, I'm generally holding on for long term. How long will I hold on to Lorcana? I don't really know, but I like to have exposure to things for a extended period of time before I let go of them, and that is what I intend to do with Lorcana, as I will with everything else that I buy in cardboard, to try to keep as long as it takes to see it appreciate in value. 2x, 3x, 4x, something like that. So those Illuminers troves, you'll see sleeve packs. And again, I'm sorry to keep switching back here, but what you want to look for are the most recent sets: Wilds Unknown, Winter Spell, Whispers in the Well. And if you see Fabled, absolutely gobble that up and buy everything you see of that out in the wild. But these 4 sets, and I think Attack of the Vine, when it comes out, are the best values for you to get at MSRP. So those are those sets you're looking for. There's those Illuminers troves, they're sleeve packed, and then there's little kind of collection boxes like what you see here. This is a collection box, collection starter kit from Winter Spell. So the packs in here are Winter Spell packs. You can see right there. There's 4 packs. There's a cool little promo, and there is a little stitch binder in there. And actually I was thinking about opening this up, but actually, as I see it, if you look on the back of this, maybe like this. Why can I not? All right. Oh boy, there we go. Perfect. All right, so off in the corner there, you can see what is in here, which is a binder featuring Stitch on there. There's a promo, and there's the 4 packs, and then a few other kind of loose items as well. But I looked up like the value. So these retail for $29.99. And at my local Barnes and Noble, they had tons of these things sitting on the shelves. Nobody has wanted these for the longest time, but now I think this is one of the best deals you can find out there, and I'll tell you why. The binder in here sells for about $8, $9 on eBay. Each of the winter spell packs, and you get 4 of them, sells for. Actually, I want to look that up right now because I feel like things change so quickly. But yeah, each of the loose packs sells for about $11 right now. I'll bring you over to the screen there. So this is the loose pack sales for Winter Spell. Not a ton of these are selling. It's just like a handful each day. But you can't get these for very cheap right now. So $11 is the lowest they're listed for. A lot of them have sold. Not a lot, but a good number have sold for that $11 mark. So again, $11 I think is what these packs inside here are worth. And you get 4 of them. So that's $44 in packs right there. The binder's worth $8. And then what I didn't realize until I looked it up was this little promo in there. And we'll go take a look at it on eBay. But the promo in there has some pretty significant value. If we go to eBay and we search for Stitch Carefree Snowboarder is what it's called, which it says on the box. That's how I know that. Actually, we gotta search for promo because it's going to come up with the regular card from the Winter Spell set. But if we look for promo and we look at sold items, look at this promo. It's a $25 card, you guys. I had no idea. $25 all day long. And actually, look at this. There's one being auctioned for, it's up to $52 with 5 shipping, which is insane. I don't know why. There's just 2 people outbidding each other that don't know any better. But, it's a $25 card, folks. So again, $30 box, $8 binder, $44 in packs, and a $25 promo. I don't know what that comes out to, but it's like $60 of value for $29.99. So whenever I'm investing in something that is from retail or can be bought at MSRP, I want to buy stuff that's already that's basically already worth more than I am paying for it. Even though the reason I'm buying it is because I actually think this is a long-term play that I think will appreciate significantly as all this stuff dries up, as more people get interested in Lorcana, as the game grows in popularity, and more people decide to invest in it and collect these cards. So if it's already worth more than what it's going for in stores, and it's something that you can actually find readily available, which I think you probably can if you live in a smaller town, or maybe it's even findable in larger towns. I don't really know. I live in a small town, so I'm not sure. Generally, everything gets sucked up. Everything that's good at retail gets sucked up sooner in larger cities. So I would assume that's probably true of things like this, but I don't know. It's hard to tell because a lot of this stuff has been sitting on the shelves much longer than I would expect, just because, I don't know, not enough people have really paid attention to what's going on in Lorcana, so they don't see any of the prices rising on this stuff. And just yesterday, this stuff was available on Amazon.com for $29.99, and I bought 20 boxes there. I think I could have bought up to like 40 in one transaction. But I hadn't looked up the price of the Stitch promo, so I didn't really know just how good of a deal it was. And the Stitch promo is really cool. You can't really see it in the video, but it's got like this gold border. The whole thing is like super shiny. and metallic looking, and promos in general are doing really well in Lorcana. So I think that's definitely one of the reasons why it's going for so much. But um, tons of stuff out there, I think, still on shelves that you can get and put in your collection and hang on to it long term if you want. But even if you don't decide to keep it very long, it already is appreciated for to a price point that's quite a bit more than what it sells for. So keep your eyes peeled for this stuff in your area, and pick it up if you would like. But that's what we got for today, folks. Hope you are having fun in your collecting and investing in cardboard. I hope you learned something today if you didn't know anything about Lorcana. And if you are an experienced, Lorcana collector already, I'd love to kind of hear what your thoughts are about this recent boom in interest in the Lorcana TCG from a collecting and investing space. All right, guys, that's what we got for today. We'll see y'all next time. Have a good one. Bye now.